Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of Screenplay Rewind, a very special episode. I'm Jeff.
I'm Ron.
And this week's episode is special because we did not pick this movie or the next three. And what happens when you let people pick the movies for you? You end up watching Dragon Ball Evolution next week. Fuck yeah.
I cannot
Excited
wait
for
to
that.
record that with you.
I'm glad one of us is...
Was that Lazy? Is that who picked that?
Oh, yeah, that son of a bitch. I'm glad at least one person trolled this, though, because everyone else was actually, like...
I know. Everyone was
surprisingly nice. Like, I'm not mad.
I'm just disappointed.
I was surprised. But Lazy came through, because I'm going to probably fucking hate my life having to watch that movie finally, because I was putting it off until Lazy made it an obligation that I have to fucking watch. So, hallelujah. But our first episode for our special Friends and Family Month that we decided to do is actually Into the Woods, picked by none other than our friend from Ron's little awesome streaming community on Ronson's TV on Twitch, Phoenix Waddell.
Hi, Phoenix.
So, hello, Phoenix. Hello. So, this one's a little bit out of my wheelhouse because we're covering Into the Woods, which is a musical, which is usually not my cup of tea. But
I got to say, I am disappointed that I did not bring the first musical onto the podcast. But that is my fault because the one I want you to watch has been on HBO the entire time we've had a podcast.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Yeah. It is good though that I watched and have gotten really into Hamilton since it went on Disney Plus, because I think I'm a little bit more receptive to musicals than I used to be, just because I really fucking love Hamilton. So like I can actually, yeah, you need to correct that because Hamilton's fucking great.
Is it? That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, if we weren't in a pandemic, I probably would have picked it as one of my movies that I would, pick for our actual movie days that inspire this podcast, where me and Ron would just hang out and just watch a movie. So once the pandemic is eventually over, I'll probably sit you and Chris down and have y'all watch Hamilton, because you really need to see Hamilton. It's great.
You could always pick it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one that would work particularly well for like Screenplay Rewind.
Oh, we can talk about anything, Jeff.
We can, but
we've proven that.
I love Hamilton. I don't really know like what I would talk about with Hamilton. But with Into the Woods, so it is an adaptation of I believe it was on 86 Broadway. Into the Woods. The movie version is directed by Rob Marshall. It was adapted to the screen by James Lapine. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I'm sure you nailed it.
I'm sure I did not. Features a pretty ridiculously like star-studded cast: Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt, James Corden, Anna Kendrick, Chris Pine. A lot of the Johnny Depp is in there. Like a lot of the character actors are actually like really well-respected character actors. Like the cast is just like fucking bonkers good.
Can I just say I'm shocked that you could say Anna Kendrick's name without swooning?
I mean, you couldn't see me, so you don't know what was happening. You just heard what I was saying. Maybe I'm just a master at covering up what the mass amount of swooning, because I do. I want to live in the alternate reality where I'm married to Anna Kendrick, not this one. I'm just throwing that out there.
And to top it off, she's Cinderella.
Right? See, that was actually interesting. Because I know so little about musicals and Broadway stuff, I had no idea going into this movie it was based on like grim fairy tales. I was like,
really?
Wait. I remember
pitch?
this movie. I remember this movie coming out into theaters, and I watched like one or two trailers, but it came out like 7 or 8 years ago, so I don't fucking remember that. I barely remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
These people are singing. I'm not watching this.
And yeah, and then like I would see like the trailers for it and be like, oh, that's a great cast, and like, oh, they're singing, so I'm okay, like you said. And now that I'm a little bit more receptive to them, like I can actually like I don't imagine I'm going to just magically like all musicals I see, but I'm more receptive to actually like giving them a chance now.
It's not my favorite genre, but I do like a good musical every once in a while.
So this is an amalgam of the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, and Rapunzel. And it's just like a little smorgasbord of just, major and supporting characters from all of those tales kind of mixed together into one plot line. And it was adapted from the 1986 Broadway play that we mentioned earlier. And apparently, like, they had been wanting to get this one into a feature film for like multiple decades. Because if you have something on Broadway and it goes into those like one of like those Hamilton style post Broadway things where it's basically a thing forever, like people will just clamor onto it, and no matter the format it's in. And they finally were able to get this made into a movie in 2014. So just one side note, obviously we will have full spoilers for all the movies we cover, so please have watched the film if you're interested in not having the plot elements spoiled for you. And we will probably have the Friends and Family Month episodes be closer in length to our Wonder Woman special, which was about an hour. We're going to be aiming these to be more around the course of an hour, just because we are doubling our scheduling for the month. Instead of having 2 episodes, we're having 4 for the the special picks. And we don't want to have 4 3-hour epic sagas because we don't have a second week to like extend them to. We don't have a backup. So
I have a feeling our next one's going to be shorter than an hour.
Probably going to be the death of if one thing could kill the podcast, it would be lazy selection of Dragon Ball Evolution. Because fuck,
sweet son of a bitch. I want to slap him and hug him.
Ron made a joke after I was swooning over the Avatar, The Last Airbender news this week about potentially picking M. Night's Airbender movie. That would 1,000% be the death of the show.
I like that
you will
movie.
never. You are incorrect, but you are welcome to your
That was the first Blu-ray I
opinion.
ever owned, I recall.
Oh, please stop talking. You're hurting my soul. The fact that someone paid money for that film hurts my soul. Oh, it's terrible. But the movie we're talking about this week is Into the Woods, a not terrible movie. So what were your first impressions? Because neither Ron or myself had watched this movie going in.
Is this the first time on the podcast neither one of us have watched it?
I believe so. We've obviously had instances of introducing the other person to movies, but I think this is the first time that we're both going into one blind. As far as like not new stuff, because obviously we hadn't seen like Wonder Woman 2, because that was those are like brand new. But as far as like actually established movies that have been out for quite some time, this is the first time we have not.
This is the first time that neither one of us had seen that. Yes.
So just real quickly, this is going to be more in Ron's wheelhouse because Ron actually does, like that. You said this was on your radar. You'd actually been wanting to see it, right?
Yeah, this was on my radar. I saw the trailers. I was like, oh man, that looks great. I can't wait to see it. Oh man, look at that cast. Ooh, and they're singing. Cool. And the movie came out, and I totally forgot it exists.
Like you do.
Yep. There's a lot of movies coming out, man, all the time.
Yeah, like
it's easy.
When there's 30 Marvel movies coming out every year, it's very hard to squeeze in time for literally anything else in your life,
Yeah.
So we can't be blamed. I remember trailers for it, but since it was a musical, I never really sought it out. So since you were a little bit more intrigued by this movie over the long haul since it's been a thing, what were your impressions on it when you watched it tonight?
I didn't particularly care for it, to be honest.
I thought it was okay. It's obviously hard for me to like critique something like this because it's just not my cup of tea. But I like the performances.
It's not my favorite genre. I like a good musical every once in a while, but the performances were all stellar. Meryl Streep, my God.
Meryl Streep is so awesome in this movie, dude.
Oh, she's so good. I like the performances. I like the sets. One issue that I have with period pieces is usually clothing in particular, not just costume design, but clothing. And that all looks like real clothing people would have worn. It didn't look like, a high schooler put together a bunch of wardrobes for a production. It is made well. I just didn't really care for the story really at all. I didn't really get where anything was going, how anything fit together. It just kind of felt like we didn't go anywhere. It's like we sat in one place and didn't move.
See, I actually, maybe partially just because I had no idea what I was, like sitting down to watch. I actually was kind of pleasantly surprised by the story because I didn't know that it was based on. And I'm actually like, I'm a big fan of representations of fairy tales when they actually treat them kind of the way they were, which is I actually like when this movie takes the time to just point out how fucked up some of these fairy tales were. Like when they have that one line after Cinderella's evil stepsisters have gotten their fucking eyes pecked out by the telepathic birds, and they actually like make a little note on how fucked up and weird that is that it happened.
Yep.
And it like completely like quick aside,
already?
how did Disney warp all of these really disturbing fairy tales into these like little kids Disney movies? Because I've always just been kind of perturbed by that, because like these fucking fairy tales are dark.
Yeah, they're very,
and it was
very
like
dark.
Yeah, they're so fucked up and brutal and just really disturbing. And then Disney just like, oh yeah, we'll make a movie for 4-year-old kids, with little cartoon animals and shit. Yeah, what like whatever.
Yeah, why not?
I just always found that really bizarre. But yeah, I actually dug the kind of characters they decided to like. So let's actually talk about like the characters that are involved in this.
Also, real quick though, before I would just like to point out Anna Kendrick, James Corden. And oh, come on, computer, bring me back to the IMDb page. I always forget her name. I can never remember her name. Christine Baranski. All three of them in the first Trolls movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like to point that out.
I have not seen that. Okay, so Anna Kendrick is playing Cinderella. Daniel Huddlestone is playing Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk. James Corden is playing the baker. He's kind of like it's like an ensemble cast, but he's kind of like the main character of the movie when you kind of break it down the way that the stories intertwine.
The main crutch of the story is the baker and his wife.
Yeah. Emily Blunt plays the baker's wife. The kind of essential antagonist for like the first like 3/4 of the movie is Meryl Streep playing the witch from Rapunzel, right? That's where she ties in, I believe.
I guess,
because wasn't she supposed to be like basically like the old hag from Rapunzel?
I believe is what we're getting at. See, I am familiar more with the Disney cleansed versions of these stories than I am the actual Brothers Grimm.
The actual stories, yeah. So Mackenzie Mozzie plays Rapunzel. Billy Magnuson plays Rapunzel's prince. Prince Charming is played by none other Chris Pine. I fucking love Chris Pine. He can be in every movie as far as I'm concerned, and I'll always enjoy him.
Boy, he's an ass in this.
Yeah, he is. Lilla Crawford plays Little Red Riding Hood, and you have a few other. Johnny Depp plays the Big Bad Wolf. You have a few other, I think people from like particularly like musical backgrounds, obviously.
Yeah.
Like Francis de la Tour plays the giant towards the end. So yeah, like the kind of general plot line of the film is the baker and the baker's wife are trying to get 4 objects that Meryl Streep's witch character requires within a 3-day time period to pretty much lift a curse that she's placed upon James Corden's family like line, where it can't be continued because she placed a curse on their family tree, essentially making it where it can no longer extend. So they need a cow that's as white as milk. I don't know how they clarify what is, if it's like, did she ask for like a cloak or a cape that's as red as blood? I forget what she says.
A shoe that is pure as gold, and hair as yellow as corn.
Yes. So that they and you can kind of tell like from which points of view and as far as each of these like fairy tales that they start to like intertwine them together. I did actually really like some of the comedic timing from people that you don't really associate with it. Like Meryl Streep actually has a couple moments where she made me laugh, which is not because usually she's just like an incredible actress, but I don't really associate her with like comedic timing.
Right.
But she has a couple of lines, like the one where she's like, "Who cares? Cow's gone. Get it back. Get it back." Or like just like some of her delivery is funny. I also really like the scene where Jack's mom steps outside their little hut after the beanstalk is grown, and she just like fucking shrieks at the sight of the giant ass beanstalk. That part made me
She
laugh.
just stands there for a moment staring at it, and then it does that wide shot, and then
Yeah, like I think that the directing is actually for the most part pretty good. I think ultimately this storyline, the reason why I don't think it like I think it's okay. Ron, obviously wasn't particularly into it. This is the type of thing I think belongs on like a stage.
yeah.
I understand like why they wanted to put this on the movie screen, because obviously films make a lot more money in the long run than like plays. But this is the type of thing I could totally see like being super into, like seeing it live, just like because of the way they could do like the sets would make it fun.
I was gonna say with the set and the set changes and stuff, I'm sure it's incredible on stage.
Yeah, and I actually think they did a pretty good job, like as far as adapting it, because like sometimes when you have Broadway plays that are adapted to film, it's just like a fucking shit show.
Yeah,
like they have no clue how to adapt it. And I think this wasn't this the same director that did like Chicago?
Yes.
I think that's yeah.
He's also doing the Little Mermaid remake, the live action.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So he has a background with the material. I actually think they probably did like as good of a job as you can adapting the story. It's a story that plays out, in my opinion, now as someone who hasn't seen it, but if it was popular enough on Broadway, to have this 30-year run of popularity, it has to be a fantastic play. Let's see. So, here's a little question for you, Ron.
All right.
What is a more unlikely relationship? James Corden and Emily Blunt in this movie, or Kate Beckinsale and Adam Sandler in the movie Click?
I knew that was coming. I knew that's where you were going. I guess still got to go Adam Sandler and Kate Beckinsale, I think. It's close.
I agree, but as soon as I saw James Corden and Emily Blunt, I was like, oh, hell no.
It's close. It's close.
James Corden, I love you, dude. But it's Emily fucking Blunt, dude. Like,
it was a little surreal at the end of the movie with the baby, too, because all of a sudden I was like, am I watching Doctor Who? Or like,
right.
Remember when in that Matt Smith season he had the baby and he's alone with the baby and the doctor comes over?
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden it's just like, wait, hold on. Am I watching Doctor Who? Because he's having all the same issues with getting it to stop crying. And like, this is a staple. James Corden makes babies cry is what we're saying.
It's true.
Yeah.
Because like that started off with like the Cybermen one, right?
Yes.
Yes. I always like the Cybermen were always my favorite villain, and I always really liked that first Corden episode with him on there. It's really cool.
Yeah, he almost got deleted.
It's true. So I really like some of the, speaking of James Corden, I think he's a really good narrator for the movie. Because like a lot of their comedic timing between like the scenes, and just like when I mentioned earlier about how like they commented and kind of pointed out how fucking bizarre and brutal
Yes.
the birds picking out the eyes of her sisters. It's just like a lot of the comedic timing comes down to his narration of it too, which I think is really good. And he's actually a really good singer in this too, which was I obviously he has that kind of run in his show where he obviously before the pandemic he did like the car karaoke with like all the famous singers and stuff, and like he's always been like a pretty good singer, but he's legitimately like really good as a singer in this, which was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, he's actually pretty strong. Yeah, this is a surprisingly meta story because not only is the narration, there's a lot of characters just like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, what did you just do? That normally in something based on a fairy tale, everyone just kind of takes at face value and moves on.
Yeah, especially
this
like
was
the
surprisingly meta.
like the moment that you mentioning that made me think of it initially was Little Red Riding Hood, after she sees Cinderella have her conversation with the bird, she's like, you talk to the birds. Like they actually right in the movie hall just to point out how fucking batshit the movie is, while everyone else is kind of like, yeah, it's fine, and they just like you said, they just completely take it at face value. She's like, did you just talk to the bird?
Yeah. Like, wait,
yeah.
Oh, you say you talk to birds? Then, speaking of Little Red Riding Hood, by the way, I laughed out loud at oh dear, how uneasy I feel. I don't know why that made me laugh.
Oh, the sequence that like it was so weirdly done. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying it's bad. It was just so bizarre. I felt like I was watching a fucking David Lynch movie. The scene when they show her going down the stomach of the wolf.
Yes.
is literally like something out of Twin Peaks, dude. Like, I'm like, what am I watching? But like James Corden like goes to like, you know, like stab a hole to like rip open the wolf's stomach to like get them out, and like they went into like like, is the bad wolf's stomach like a TARDIS? Because they're like, it becomes like Fantastic Voyage, like inside his organs they're like miniaturized. I'm like, what am I watching? But it was like, it was so bizarre that made it kind of cool, just because it was such a very specifically like weird choice to go with it. I dug that.
The thing that made me kind of squirm, though, since we're talking about Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, is the Big Bad Wolf stalking her through the woods. Like, especially as a father, it's like, I am just uneasy with the way he's talking about this little girl and stalking her around. I was just like, and like my daughter was sitting on me, and I'm just kind of like holding her, and I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
It's very fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Again, they're correctly paying homage to just how fucked up the fairy tales were. Like it's funny how, like, if you asked most people what their kind of impressions are of some of these stories, they think of stuff like Tangled, like you mentioned earlier, and they think about these very, very watered down representations. You know, like Cinderella is also a very dark story.
And Frozen is based on Hans Christian Andersen, the Snow Queen, and like Elsa should be the villain. And like initially she was, but she's supposed to be the villain, and like at this point, the only thing that it has in common is just she has ice powers, and that is it. Like nothing else is in common with the original story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as someone who is like just more interested in these types of stories through like, because I know you're a big fan of like Tangled too. Does Tangled ever point out how fucked up it is that like how much it must be painful to have someone climb up your fucking hair like a rope? I actually liked that they pointed that out too in this movie. Like she has to like she has to like wrap her hair around a hook to be able to have like leverage on it to where they're not just pulling at her fucking head. Is that ever addressed in Tangled? Because I haven't seen Tangled.
I do not believe it is, but I will never get the image of Emily Blunt trying to cut that hair out of my head and her like nearly ripping Rapunzel out of the tower.
Yeah, it's also really funny too. I don't know the name. I think they just refer to him as Rapunzel's prince in the cast, but when he is like fucking Spider-Man swinging on her hair, he's like, bad idea, and he just smacks him to the tower. Was also a moment I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then they have like, and then it's just like some of that like bizarre mixture of tone. The way that they have Meryl Streep blind the prince is fucked up. She fucking like manifests this giant bushel of thorns that he goes face first into. I'm like, oh god, like it made me cringe, like that moment in the fucking movie Stuber. Remember where he has the fish hooks mounted into the side of his face, and like I still feel those phantom pains from the theater to like this very day. Like,
yeah, it is that in the original story or is that taken from something else? There's that rung a bell in my head when I saw that happen.
It's probably from the original story, but I know a little bit about like the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales and stuff, but I'm not an expert by any means, so I can't place the specific.
Tangled does do the tear though.
That he, so does he get blinded and she heals him with a tear?
He gets
in that
fucking
as well?
stabbed to death.
Oh, he gets killed. Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Spoilers, Jesus.
I told you about it once.
Yeah, I probably forgot.
We'll talk about it when it's over. It's actually the coolest part of the movie. I told you about it once. You'll remember when I tell you.
Yeah, I did forget about the Skrulls being involved in Spider-Man.
I don't know. You talk a lot about shit I don't care about.
Yeah, see, Ron is actually thinking I'm having this conversation with him, but I have just programmed just generic responses to stuff. Like, oh, that's interesting. Huh? I didn't really feel the same way, but I can kind of see what you're seeing. He's just talking to a never-ending series of just generic automatic responses. Yeah, I've just made a little Jeff version of Siri. It just like Ron just talks to himself all the time.
It's effective.
Yeah,
I've known it for years. I just really don't care. It gives me someone to talk to.
It's true. So what did you think about? So the characters actually have some like very bizarre like arcs towards the ending of the movie that kind of caught me off guard. Like Emily Blunt's character, she comes across Chris Pine, who's playing Prince Charming, just like the ultimate asset, like you talked about earlier.
I was raised to be
and
charming,
she starts like
not sincere.
Yeah, what is this? I was raised to be charming, not sincere. I wrote that down too. It was a great line.
That hurt me.
It's
like,
fucked
what?
up, dude. It's fucked up. But so Emily Blunt, towards the end of the movie, crosses paths with Chris Pine, and they just like start making out, and then she just falls off a cliff and dies. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, she's a major character who just kind of gets killed like towards the beginning of the third act, and that kind of caught me off guard. I don't know if that's part of the actual story they're involved in.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about actual Cinderella's story. If that happens to someone else, something similar or something, I don't know.
I think they're actually from the Rapunzel story, the baker and
are they
the big? I believe I read that earlier. Give me just 1 second to confirm. But yeah, I believe it was involved with Rapunzel, because I think
I know next to nothing about the original Rapunzel story.
Okay, so here's the original plot of Rapunzel. Yeah, a lonely couple who long for a child live next to a large, extensive, high-walled subsistence garden belonging to a sorceress. And then the old hag. So it looks like the majority of the inspiration for the film is Rapunzel oriented, and then they put in like splashes of Cinderella and like Little Red Riding Hood. But it seems like
Rapunzel's the
major players, like the baker and the baker's wife, the witch and Rapunzel. It's like the secondary characters of Rapunzel become the main characters of Into the Woods, essentially, from what I'm gathering.
Can I just say, every time that you mention the old hag, my brain automatically goes back to the live-action Beauty and the Beast. Agatha's the old hag, and there's a moment where Luke Evans just like, you would take the word of an old hag over mine. No offense, Agatha. It's just like, what?
Yeah, I've still yet to see that. I'm surprised you actually haven't picked that yet for the show, because you've been wanting me to watch that for like quite some time.
I know. I feel like you probably aren't interested enough.
I mean, you can still pick it for like, I'll watch it for the show. It's fine.
But you see, you say it like that, and then I'm just like, all right, fine, we'll watch Avengers. Like,
no, like the point of the show is to make the other person watch shit that we know they would never watch on their own. Like, I have specifically picked movies that you have said that you weren't into, just because I thought you might be like Ex Machina. You were like very anti-Ex Machina. Like, no, I'm telling you, dude. Like, if you watch it, I think you'll like it, and you'd end up liking it, but you never want to watch it if I didn't force you to. So, like, force me to watch it, dude. It's fine. Like, I'm totally open to...
But now that you're a little bit more receptive to musicals, it's not full-on musical like this. But it's more like a Disney... Well, it's more like a Disney movie. I didn't know how to back out of that. It's more like a Disney movie.
You don't say.
They break into song every once in a while.
It's the craziest thing in this Pacific Rim movie. It's almost like a kaiju movie.
I didn't know. I said it. I realized what I said. I didn't know how to back out.
It's too late. It's too late. I'm just sitting there waiting to pounce on shit that people say that I can make fun of. That's basically what I love, what I exist for.
And you're exceptionally good at it, and I'm always like, God damn it. As soon as I say something, I'm like waiting for
You're
it.
like, God damn it, Jeff's gonna get me on that one.
Hey, here, just have this box of ammo. You don't need one bullet. Just take the box.
Fine. I wasn't gonna use it. It's fine.
Oh, Lord. What is happening?
It's all thanks to Phoenix Waddell. All these random tangents.
I mean, if she's listening, right, she had to have known where this was going to end up, right?
Yeah, for sure. So going back to the third act, the stuff with the giant, I actually liked the way that they framed the giant and always had her kind of like somewhat off screen to make her feel a little bit more intimidating.
Right.
Like, I actually thought the direction of that was actually really well done.
I wonder what that's like on stage.
Yeah, I don't entirely know how they would go about that. The backgrounds are all very good. Like a lot of times when you have movies that like use this much green screen, especially like in close proximity to the characters, you start to kind of feel for instance, do you remember the ending of Batman versus Superman where you can tell they're behind a fucking or in front of a green screen for the last like 40 straight fucking minutes of the movie and like nothing feels real, you know?
All I remember
you know
about that movie is Wonder Woman showing up.
No, you remember the Jolly Ranchers, dude. Don't lie.
Stop talking about the Jolly Ranchers.
I keep sending another tangent. I keep sending Ron the gif of not Lex Luthor shoving the fucking Jolly Ranchers into that random dude's mouth for no reason, and I get a kick out of it every time I send it.
The opposite of David Tennant. Instead of making me send you stuff, you're sending me to the Jolly Rancher gif.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh my god.
But you know what I'm talking about, like where you can obviously fucking tell that they're in front of a green screen. Then I never really get that impression with this movie. Like the effects of the
most
sets.
people in Hollywood have figured out how to use a green screen these days.
It's true.
A lot of the times it's pretty good. The soundstage that like Endgame is filmed on and everything all looks really, really good.
Yeah, the ending of Endgame shouldn't work at all, but it totally does, and it looks fucking great because they Have you ever seen, it was like a recent cinematic breakdown of the way they do the Marvel action scenes? They actually have them like storyboarded and built up in animatic like 4 years in advance before they actually film the movies,
Jesus.
which is fucking crazy.
Jesus.
Like the actual cinematography of the way the fight scenes that happen in Endgame towards the end were all done as animatics like 3 years before even filming began for the movie at all. Fucking nuts.
That's absurd. Yeah. That's absurd.
Absolutely fucking nuts. Like, Batman v Superman still doesn't have animatics or any thought behind it at all. And that movie already exists. So
Oh my god.
it just shows you, yeah. So
Back to
with
Into the Woods.
Back to Into the Woods, yeah. Quick aside, back to the movie we were supposed to be talking about.
Right. That's what this podcast is coming. We should have called it Quick Aside.
Quick aside.
Quick Aside.
It's a pretty good name for a podcast.
That is a great name.
One more thing.
All right, Columbo. Bring it back in.
Bring it back in.
Bring it back in. And center.
Let's talk about what were some of the characters that you most enjoyed, because I know you're kind of like iffy on the movie. I since it's so much outside my wheelhouse, I really can't dislike the movie just because like I don't really have a frame of comparison for most of like the fairy tale stuff or musicals just in general. How did you feel as someone who has watched a lot more musicals than I did about like the presentation like of the songs? Because I'm assuming these are all songs that were from the Broadway show, but obviously they're adapting them to a movie, so they work a little bit differently.
Yeah, from what I've read, they have changed a few lyrics of the songs, but mostly they just cut songs because they changed the story a little bit. There's two songs that were cut that were actually used as part of the score, from what I read also.
Interesting.
But which is a good way to recycle a song if you're cutting characters that sing a song. A good way to work it back in.
Yeah, for sure.
But I really enjoyed Anna Kendrick's Cinderella. I think the person I enjoyed most, though, was Meryl Streep as the witch.
Yeah, she's great.
Like it's almost unfair that she's in this movie because she just blows everyone away, and they're all doing good.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, who would have thought that Meryl Streep is like good at acting?
What?
You know, like, yeah, it's fucking crazy. But what's crazy is she has like, I think I looked it up earlier. I think she has 21 Oscar nominations, and she can still, like, this came out a few years ago, but she can still come up with like just a radically different type of performance you've never really seen her do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm always just impressed by her, just like her range of like, she can come across like so lovable, and then the next movie just be like ultimate like scum of the earth. Like, she has so much range as far as like how much she can make you like her or dislike her depending on what role she's playing. Yeah, she's insane. Like, so good.
Yeah, she's a genius. I really liked the two of them, probably the best. I felt so bad because Little Red Riding Hood, all I could hear was Fran Drescher most of the time. The actress did really good, but something about her singing,
her vocal range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt really bad because I was like, oh, she's doing really good, but I hear the nanny. I don't hear.
Honestly, I don't actually because I felt similarly about the kid playing Jack. I actually think part of the problem might have actually been just the way that they mixed their sound.
It might be
because the thing about it is like when you have like even with like the adults that were females, like Emily Blunt and Meryl Streep, it felt like to me like they almost applied like the same sound filters over them, and like because like the little kid playing Jack and the little girl playing Red Riding Hood, their vocal tracks were like very shrill to me, almost like they had like the highs cranked too much.
Oh, they're
like,
children. Their voices need to be higher. It's almost like what they did.
Well, the thing is, though, their voices are higher by default, so they don't need as much tuning. Like they don't need like
right.
it almost felt like their highs were, which are like a little kid obviously already has like a higher pitched voice, and it felt like they were amplifying that instead of like balancing it out almost. Like they almost put like the same kind of like low pass kind of like filters that were used for the adults, the same kind of filters towards the kids, which made them sound very shrill, which like I've heard like little kids, you hear kids sing in Disney movies all the time and they don't come across that shrill,
right? So
I think it was something to do with the editing and the sound mixing, because like just think about like Moana. Moana has kids singing and they sound great. I never got that, oh my god, they're so shrill, like I did with some of the songs with Jack and her. So I don't actually think it was the actor's fault. I think it was the mixing, but I agree.
But yeah, the thing that impressed me the most about the songs, and I didn't really have any songs that kind of stood out to me as like my favorite. I was kind of like on pretty much all the songs. I was just kind of in the middle, but it's never going to get out of my head because they're all almost to the same tune. So it's like I've been listening to 2 hours to this one song, so it's never going to leave my head. But the thing that blew me away about all the actors' performances, though, was when they are conversationally singing. You know what I mean? Like the way that their lines of dialogue were worked into the music, and they're half spoken word, half sang. You noticed it first, I think, with Meryl Streep when she bursts into the baker's shop.
Yeah.
But like they even do it with the kids, like Jack does it even, and I'm like, that can't be easy. Like that cannot be easy at all. Like they're not singing, but they're not speaking either. They're somewhere in the middle on some of that stuff.
If you like that, you are going to fucking love Hamilton, because that is literally all Hamilton is.
Really?
It's like the whole thing is basically just like I don't know how the fuck Lin-Manuel Miranda's brain works the way it does, but like it's like literally like 40 fucking songs, and they're all songs. They're like mostly that kind of conversational song that you're talking about, and it just blows my mind. Yeah, I agree. I thought that was really cool. But the performances, I actually have a couple that were my favorites.
Okay.
My favorite songs were always the times that they were running the same type of song, like parallel with two different sets of characters. Like I actually really liked the opening.
Okay.
When they were kind of having the same tune but happening
the I Wish
with different sections. Yeah, like the I Wish stuff where they were cutting back and forth between like Cinderella and like the Bakers and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And like my actual like probably maybe one of my like favorite scenes of the movie was towards the end when they have that really cool like parallel thing where Cinderella is with Little Red Riding Hood and then James Corden is with Jack, and they have them kind of like parallel, like singing the same type of like thematic to the like the younger cast member. It was really cool.
Cinderella and then James Corden.
Yeah. I mean he's the fucking baker, like you know what I'm talking about.
I know, it was just not a sentence I expected to hear.
Cinderella and James Corden.
And Cinderella was over with Little Red Riding Hood, and then James Corden.
I sound like I've had a stroke and I'm beyond repair.
Oh my lord. Yeah. But no, I get what you mean. Yeah, I really liked that. The other one I really liked was Christine Baranski, especially when she like pulls out the knife for the first time.
Oh yeah,
and you're just like, oh, there's all the goddamn knives. Like,
yeah, the
I tied it all together.
Dude, like when they have the sequences of Cinderella's evil stepsisters getting like their feet mangled to better fit the slippers. Like the sequence when she has her heel chopped off to be able to fit in the slipper.
Did you hear
and she's
the
like,
thump?
Yeah.
You hear the slice, then you hear the thump when it hits the ground.
You hear the thump, and when she's walking down the front porch and she's like screaming in between steps is really funny. Like there are some genuinely like fucking funny moments in this movie, which kind of caught me off guard because that's usually not the case. Where like usually musicals are like very self-serious and they don't take any time to have comedic timing unless it was like put in by the actors. There's a lot of intended like written and like and directed moments which are specifically set up just for comedy, which I appreciate.
Did we ever settle that Rapunzel is James Corden's sister? Did we ever settle that? That nothing ever came out of that, right?
I don't think so. I don't.
It's mentioned at the beginning, and then at the end they just mention it because she's touched the hair, and she's not allowed to touch any of the ingredients.
Yeah, it's bizarre how like Rapunzel is
backseated.
She's very much in the background for the story when all the major characters are from her story.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool in that way, and how they're they're kind of making up these amalgams of the storylines to combine them. It reminds me a lot. Did you ever watch Penny Dreadful on Showtime? I think it was Showtime. Might have been Cinemax.
No, it's been on my list forever for Netflix.
It's really cool. It's similar in that it's an amalgam of like Van Helsing and Frankenstein and like the Wolfman and like all those types of stories, and it's like in a combination of all those, and the way they intertwine is pretty neat.
It's Penny Dreadful, right?
Yeah, but it's not. They're not singular. Like they're all mixed together, like in an ongoing storyline. And Dorian Gray is one of the leads too. Like those types of like I think
Timothy Dalton,
Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde. Yeah, Timothy Dalton is a fucking vampire hunter, which should be enough to make you watch the show.
That should just be a movie
alone.
on its own. I'd watch that.
It's pretty fucking badass, right? Like I watch an entire movie series.
What's
it's just
Billie
Timothy
Piper
Dalton
doing
hunting
in that?
fucking. She is if
Phoenix
Josh
is
Hartnett,
listening, Billie Piper is Rose in Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, she is the girlfriend of Josh Hartnett's character in the show.
Oh, I forgot Josh Hartnett's in it. Is he a yoga instructor?
He's a badass. No, but he is a badass in the show. He's fucking great. So I'm just scrolling back through here.
Yeah.
Did you ever find any? Did you look at any of the like behind the screen stuff other than like what we've already talked about?
I just looked at the stage to screen changes. Like I said, there's some songs that were cut. Disney. It's apparently was initially reported that Disney had major changes, but apparently that wasn't really the case. They did cut a couple of songs because they either changed the storylines between the characters or did away with characters. So those songs were no longer needed or no longer pertinent. And then for the characters that did change, some of the lyrics in the songs that were in it were changed to reflect the change. Otherwise, what's the point? The thing that caught me off guard was Rapunzel's pregnancy is eliminated. And not only is that a fucking sentence, but that is a choice of words that I did not expect to see.
Yeah, that's not okay.
That's not okay.
That is not okay.
But due to the film's compressed storyline, Rapunzel's pregnancy was eliminated, as were the subplot where both princes have affairs with Snow White and Sleeping Beauty.
Oh wow! So like the stage play actually has like even more crossovers.
Well, those things tend to be like 4 hours long. So
true. That's crazy. So they made the princes even more of a fucking asshole.
Yes,
Their song's pretty funny.
I was
when
say
they're
them
like
competing with each other, who's agonized more when they're like ripping their shirts.
Yeah, like Chris Pine like rips off his shirt to look all like like sexy and badass, and then like the Rapunzel prince does the same thing to like imitate him. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
I like their duet they had going. Let's see. Yeah, that's crazy to me. I had no idea.
I didn't catch this. Okay, I read the sentence wrong. That's why I didn't catch this. Rapunzel's ultimate fate has also changed. Rather than being killed by the giant, she refuses to cooperate with the witch and flees. I read that as she got killed by the giant, and I was like, I thought she left. But apparently, she gets killed in the stage play.
It almost seems like the way they kind of like
someone really didn't
made
like Rapunzel when they wrote this.
it seems like I think what happened was they were trying to like kind of like narrow in the focus of the movie more to the baker and the baker's wife. So it seems like the plot elements which were for Rapunzel kind of got rolled into Emily Blunt's character.
Yes,
with her dying.
That's kind of what I'm getting.
And then with her dying, Emily Blunt doesn't die directly from the giant, but it's like she's in that like part of the woods, and it's like one of the giants like coming down. The thing, it's an earthquake at first. Isn't it like she's like indirectly kind of killed by a giant, pretty much?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can kind of get that. I can see that from like a writing perspective, like if you're trying to condense it down. But it is bizarre that like it's so Rapunzel centric, and then she's such like a supporting character that she's just kind of like barely there.
She
but
even that though, like she's almost an extra. Like,
well, she's kind of important just indirectly.
Right.
Like she's in a lot of scenes with important characters. She's just not the focal point really ever. Although the fucking sequence of her being in like the little swamp with like 4,000 snakes around her, because I'm terrified of snakes, just IRL. So that part was not okay for me.
Why did it have to be snakes?
Why did it have to be snakes? Yeah. Yeah, that's great. This movie actually, it's kind of surprising because I always got the impression this movie kind of didn't do that well just because it kind of came and went.
Apparently, it was considered very successful.
Like I'm looking at the box office right here, and I don't know if this is just domestic or everything, but like budget of 50 million, box office that is showing is 213 million, so it made a pretty good return on it.
See, I listen to a bunch of podcasts and stuff, and if this ever comes up, everyone talks about like what a terrible movie it is. So I've just always got the impression that's how this movie is seen. But apparently not. Apparently it was very successful. It was nominated for a ton of awards. It got Meryl Streep nominated for like 3 awards, or won her 3 awards. I can't remember which way it went.
So you had always heard like negative impressions of the movie?
I've only ever heard anything negative about it until Phoenix brought it up in my chat.
I had never really heard either way. I just kind of, it seemed like it came into the theaters and just kind of went, without ever really being, like something that made much of an impact.
Well, see, and that's the other thing too, is it just seems kind of like it floated straight on through the theater, and maybe it's just where we live. I mean, a lot of uncultured assholes living here,
to put it lightly.
Like, what, they're singing? The fuck is this shit? Crushes beer can on forehead, walks out of theater.
I thought this was America.
America.
It did okay critically, actually. Like, it has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it wasn't like a Rotten Tomatoes score can sadly straight up kill a fucking movie. Because if you have a movie come out and it has like a 10% or like a 20 on Rotten Tomatoes, that literally crushes like a certain like percentage point on profits immediately before the movie's even like been released to the public, which is kind of sad because like we shouldn't be basing everything off of fucking aggregator websites, like Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of fucked up. But
yeah, the ones that it won from the American Film Institute. I just accidentally scrolled. Hold on. It won an award from them. It won Excellent Fantasy Film for Costume Designers Guild. MTV Movie Awards, Best Villain, Meryl Streep, it won. Best Ensemble Motion Picture, it won. And the Young Artists, it won for Best Performance, Lila Crawford. Best Young Actress, Best Young Supporting Actress.
So this is interesting. I'm just looking back through the same kind of notes on IMDb. So it was nominated for Best Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical. Was this year that it was going up against The Martian?
I was going to say, it sounds like Martian talk to me.
Yeah. I still can't believe they fucking did that. I could have an entire podcast of how fucking stupid the Golden Globes and Academy Awards have become over time. Like,
the best thing, though, is that gave us Ridley Scott's speech, though.
That was pretty great.
Because the very first thing he did before even pulling his speech out was, comedy?
Comedy?
And then, remember that was the year that they were in a real fucking hurry. So almost immediately they started playing him off, and he was like, nope. And he just kept going through his speech, and they kept cranking the music up, so he was just shouting into the microphone by the end of it. And he did his whole damn speech because he's Ridley fucking Scott.
It's Ridley fucking Scott.
Yeah.
Like, go fuck yourself. Like, the man has earned his goddamn moment up there, you know? Like, he's been making movies for like 50 fucking years.
Could you imagine being the guy at the soundboard? Because I have to imagine he's just like, really? Really? You want me to play him off? Because, I mean, it's Ridley fucking Scott.
It's Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But, yeah, no, that whole thing was great.
Yeah. Were there any other kind of like tidbits movie you wanted to cover? Because I've kind of run through most of my
we've pretty much run through my notes as well. I really don't have a whole lot else to say. Again, this is usually the stuff that I bring up I've watched more than once. So I don't really have a whole lot more that I've noticed. Usually I notice things on repeated viewings of stuff, but
yeah, it's easier to kind of form an opinion too when it's kind of when you've watched it multiple times. You can kind of start to pick up on the nitty gritty points of the film that end up kind of sticking in your head for the long term. That like the first viewing just like can't do. But I liked it more than I thought I would. I actually ended up liking this movie. Primarily because of the performances and just kind of some of like the directing choices. But I totally can see why. This isn't the type of thing like that kind of like hooked people, just because I do strongly believe it had to have worked just better as a stage play. I think that's
sure,
kind
especially if they've condensed it. I'm sure it's a lot tighter. Yeah, I did want to throw this quote in there though, because I thought this was fucking great. What type of magic? Tell him. Magic that defies description. Like, I was like, that is the best like con I think I have ever heard. It I don't know. I can't tell you. You just have to take these beans and find out.
Another scene I really liked was also one of my favorite bits of kind of like that in between conversation and song you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. The moment when Cinderella is running away and they have like the freeze
frame and you have the little embers in the air and everything.
That scene is amazing.
That scene is great.
Absolutely, like Anna Kendrick's fantastic in that scene. The whole construction of just like the way it's presented, like with the like you said, like with the embers in the air, and she actually walks out of her shoes
and she steps out of her shoes. Yeah,
she steps out of her shoes and she's like walking around having this like in like. It all happens in like the span of a second in real time, but she has this moment to kind of like break down her situation, and she kind of like is weighing like the pros and cons of like what she's doing, and it's just such a cool little moment that I absolutely
love that every time, every night. It's like, and again she went to the ball. And again, she ran from her prince.
The way that he narrates it is perfect because he's like and making fun of it in like a meta way.
And then
like,
on the third time that she goes to the ball, and the third time she runs from the prince, he's dumped pitch on the stairs.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's great.
It's so good.
Chris Pine is also very good about whether he needs to be lovable or just be an asshole, as he can be both to like very extreme degrees, because like he's charming in this fucking movie, but fuck is he a cunt in this movie too.
Oh
like,
my God.
Damn.
I was raised to be charming, not sincere.
Great line.
Oh, is it?
Chef's kiss of a line. It's great that the fact that it hurts your very fucking soul is like chef's kiss. Great line.
It took my breath away a little bit as I was, what a fucking cold thing to say. Like, that is just fucking cold, dude. Mr. Freeze would be like, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But, so the main driving force behind Friends and Family Month was Ron and I had a discussion about, like, we were being kind of, like, cliches of ourselves with the movies we were picking, you know?
We needed to break it up.
We needed to break it up, and there's no better way to do that than to, you know, let our friends and family pick some movies.
I expected House Shark 4 times is what I expected.
If that had happened, so help me God. I don't think I could do it again. I already lost several years off of my life on that first viewing alone, so I have nothing left to give House Shark. But yeah, this has been fun talking about something that's kind of outside our wheelhouse. Because it's interesting. So when you only talk about shit that you like, it's interesting where you can start to kind of like realize what sticks out for you in movies, both to like a positive or negative degree. Mm-hmm. Especially when you watch something that's not in your typical, frame of mind, like musicals are just not something I seek out. So when I watch it, it's very difficult for me to like watch it as a reviewer. Whereas if it was a standard movie, I've watched a bajillion standard movies and kind of like know my tastes.
Right.
I don't fully know my taste when it comes to musicals, so this was very fun to talk about. Even if it's not a movie that like I love, I did like, and it's just like a fun experiment to like review stuff that's kind of like outside of your typical space. And as I say that, next week's Dragon Ball Evolution. So I immediately take back everything I just said.
One way or another, Jeff, or are you just kind of in the middle on this one?
Wait, what was that?
Is it any strong feelings on this one way or the other, or are you just kind of in the middle on this one?
On Into the Woods, I'm in the middle. I like it. I liked it. It's not one I would probably ever watch again. But again, between those moments that we talked about that were really good, like there's a lot of standout moments that I really really liked. It's just I don't think as a whole it works as well as it would have as if you were seeing it as a stage play.
Right.
That's kind of where I've fallen on. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I know how I'm going to feel about next week's movie with Dragon Ball Evolution. So we can go ahead and talk about how...
I cannot wait.
Didn't you say you fucking own that movie,
I sent you a picture of the DVD.
Oh, God. You own Avatar: The Last Airbender, the movie, and the Dragon Ball Evolution movie?
I sure do.
Why do I have this podcast? Why am I here?
Just
that hurts
wait.
me.
Just wait. You have no idea.
I'm not ready.
The thing is, too, I was looking, the cast on this movie is not even all that bad. It's kind of a shame, really. I don't really know Justin Chatwin except from this movie, but Yun Fat Chow, I like. Emmy Rossum.
You mean Chow Yun Fat?
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. Look at IMDb. Yun Fat Chow.
Oh, well, I think it's they might be doing it like the more correct way, because in China they flip their names. Like Yao Ming in China is actually called Ming Yao.
But Randall Duck Kim, Ernie Hudson. Ernie Hudson's in this movie, dude.
Ernie Hudson's in Dragon Ball Evolution?
Ernie Hudson's in this movie.
Why the fuck is he in that movie? What?
Emmy Rossum is Bulma.
Fuck you, lazy. Why have you done this to me?
There was another one.
I have gone so long without ever watching it. I like swore it off, and I finally have to fucking watch it.
I kind of felt bad for June Park. He plays Yamcha. He got stuck being like 40-year-old Yamcha in this movie when everyone else is a teenager.
40-year-old Yamcha.
But he's also got a small bit part in Speed Racer. It's really good in the moment that he's in it, and then he was in this, and then I've never seen or heard of him again. So
have we talked about how we need to cover Speed Racer or something?
I always talk about how I need to cover Speed Racer because Speed Racer is fucking great.
Actually, like, because like I had always heard, like just like the general consensus about how that movie was ass, and you were like, "No, it's good. Trust me, watch it." And I watched it. And I like it a lot too, so I would actually like to watch.
Like a
I would like to have an excuse to revisit that one because I did really fucking like Speed Racer.
Speed Racer was great.
So we can go ahead. We talked about how Dragon Ball Evolution is the next movie. The third and fourth movies, Friends and Family Month, people were much more kind to us in these choices.
Than Lazy's
Ron's
choice.
wife, Chris, selected Spirited Away, Miyazaki's fantastic movie, complete classic that I'm excited to talk about. And our buddy Bobby picked Spaceballs to round out the month, which I can...
What a way to go out.
I can quote the goddamn entirety of that movie from start to finish.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine.
It's fucking amazing. I'm excited to talk about Spaceballs. I could talk. We could this could be just Spaceballs every week, and I could
Colonel
find new
Sanders?
shit. Chicken.
Spaceball one's
We ain't
gone plaid.
found shit. Yeah, that'd be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, but I am again. Thank you to Phoenix for always being so friendly and awesome in Ron's chat on Twitch. And
Phoenix.
We wanted to. Yeah, she's the best. We wanted to make sure to have her film on here, because she's super dedicated and always fun to talk to in the chat over on Ron's channel. Where can people find you on that channel, Ron?
I am Ron Sense TV on all the things: Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter.
And you can find me on Twitter at gmillerspr. If you wanted to follow me on my personal channel, it's that one. And then SPR Filmcast is the Twitter handle for just the channel itself for updates and just random kind of musings that we have on that side.
Someday I'm going to update all my bios to include the podcast.
Probably not.
It was like I had changed my name to Ron Sense TV. I don't know, for like 6 months or so. It still had the link for Ron PGB.
Nice.
So yeah, I don't get on the bio changing very often.
Yeah, we're really bad about everything.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yep. But yeah, we appreciate you listening, and y'all have a good one.